Hello everyone, Charles Watts here, the Arsenal correspondent at Goal, joining you on Thursday. We're 2 days away from match day now. We are getting there, and this morning me and other members of the press spoke to Mikel Arteta for his pre-match press conference ahead of Saturday's game against Newcastle. So I thought I'd pop on, just discuss what was said and give my take on some of the pieces. Look ahead to that Newcastle game, a little bit of team news and that sort of thing. Apologies, this is a little bit late in the day, this video, but as I mentioned yesterday, I got the joys of homeschooling now with my two kids, not at school because the schools are shut. With this lockdown, and got to sort of balance work and homeschooling, so not easy to find the time to get everything done. But I still thought I'd pop on and just have a little bit of a look at what Mikel had to say, because there were certainly some interesting points today. Covered an awful lot: Balogun, Saliba, Ozil, the new arrival of Omar Rekik, which should be announced very soon, team news and everything. So I thought it was still worth popping on and giving you a bit of a insight into what it was all like. We'll start with Balogun, because I thought that was really interesting today, what he had to say on Balogun. Obviously, we all want him to sign a new contract. Looks a real talent. He's shown it in the Europa League this season. 5 games now, 2 goals for the 19-year-old. But it's been that elephant in the room all season. He's out of contract at the end of the season and hasn't put pen to paper yet. Mikel Arteta has previously spoken about it, said that he's hopeful the player wants to stay and all that, but today went down a little bit of a different track. I'll just read the quotes of what he had to say. He said, "You need 3 parties to make a deal for sure. The club wants to make a deal, the manager wants to make a deal, the player wants to stay, and I'm not sure about the agent." Then he confirmed that he thought there was enough space for Balogun to come through, and then he was pressed on that comment about the agents, and is he stopping it? He said, "No, I'm not saying he's stopping. I'm saying we need to find an agreement with him. We are negotiating with an agent, with a player that wants to stay at the club, and we need to find an agreement. I'm telling you that we're doing everything we can to keep him here, and hopefully from the other part, they are doing the same, and they defend the same interest, which is the player's interest, which is to stay at the football club and be successful with us." So an interesting sort of point of attack from Mikel Arteta there. You'd think if you're in sort of protracted contract negotiations that aren't going too well, you'd think taking a shot at the agent publicly probably isn't the best idea. But Mikel Arteta's not a silly man. He would have thought about this. He had certainly planned this answer. He knew what he was going to say before a question was asked. If someone did ask about Balogun, he would have had this lined up, I imagine. And he's had a bit of a go, and it'll be interesting to see how it pans out. Since the press conference, James McNicholas, Gunnerblog, you guys will probably know him as, and David Ornstein have run a story on The Athletic saying that Balogun is now close to signing a pre-contract agreement with an unnamed foreign club. So perhaps this is why Mikel's let rip a little bit, because he's frustrated, because he understands that Balogun may be on the verge of deciding to move elsewhere, and maybe this is a last bit of an attempt to sort of convince the player perhaps to ignore his agent, if that is the case, that the player wants to stay but the agent doesn't want him to. Now, Balogun is represented by Elite Group Management. They also represent Bukayo Saka, who Arsenal managed to get tied down to a new contract, Eddie Nketiah as well. So that agency are well known, and Amike, who runs it, is well known to Arsenal. So it's an interesting way, that a route that Mikel Arteta's gone down here, especially as we hear the story that was published on The Athletic soon after. Makes me think that Arteta is probably well aware that something is going on in terms of Balogun's future. It will be a big blow if he leaves. I think we're all excited about Balogun, but we've been here before with a lot of young players who are all excited by it. They haven't gone on to really make it elsewhere. So it's not an absolute nailed on certainty that Arsenal are going to go on to live to regret it if Balogun does go. But he does look like he's got a bit of a special talent. I also think Arsenal were in a difficult position with Balogun because of what happened last summer with the contracts talk breaking down, with Arsenal basically saying, like, okay, fine, you can go, because he didn't accept the contract that they thought was a good one that was on the table. When you get to that stage and then suddenly you try and restart talks again, I think you're always in a very difficult position. You're always sort of behind the ball game in that position, and it was always going to be a difficult sort of convincing job to get Balogun, perhaps not Balogun, but as Mikel's saying here, Balogun's agents, to agree to a new contract, because you've already basically shut down talks before and kind of cut your ties with it then, and then suddenly to pick it up later. I thought it was always going to be a difficult one, but you never know. There's still time. Hopefully Arsenal will convince him to stay and he will sign a new contract and will go on and be a fantastic striker for the football club. But if not, he's going to be one we're going to have to watch play elsewhere. Mikel Arteta, sorry, I was going to say Mesut Ozil, because Mesut Ozil was another big topic of discussion, even though he doesn't play for God knows how long. Obviously, there's lots of stories about Mesut Ozil leaving at the moment. I covered it in a video yesterday, and Mikel was asked, understandably, about the latest on Mesut and his future. He is free to talk to other clubs now about a free transfer in the summer because he's out of contract, but there has been suggestions he might leave this month. Fenerbahce very, very keen to take him this month if they can strike some sort of agreement with the player and Arsenal are more than willing to let that happen. They'd love to get Ozil out the door. I touched on that yesterday's video as well. Mikel was asked about it. He said, if something was sorted this month, it's because it's good for both parties. It's good for Mesut and his future, and it's good for the club. If that's the case, we will move forward, or if it's not the case, the player will stay here. I don't know what's going to happen. Obviously, he's free to negotiate with other clubs. We will discuss internally what the best situation for him is for the future, obviously with the player and the agent to try and find the best solution for everyone. I'm saying we will decide what's happening in the next few days. Now, as I said yesterday, Mesut has been given a little bit of time off recently. He is now back training again. He was given time off to try and sort of facilitate this move, to see what he could put together to try and come to a agreement with one of the clubs who are interested. I've said Fenerbahce, DC United in the United States have had a long-term interest in Mesut. We know that, and there's certainly been interested in him from clubs in the Middle East as well. So Arsenal gave him a little bit of time off to try and help push through a move possibly this month. He is back now, but talks are ongoing to see if some sort of agreement can be reached. As I said yesterday, Arsenal wouldn't be expecting a transfer fee for Ozil at this stage. They'd just be happy to get him off the books, to get his huge wage off the books, and basically be able to move on from this situation that we've been at for feels like an awful long time now. So that was what Mikel had to say about Mesut. I thought it was quite interesting. He said in the next few days, so potentially we're not too far away from finding out exactly what's going to happen to Mesut. Will he leave this month, or will he see out his contract and leave in the summer? Plenty of talk about William Saliba as well. Some good responses from Mikel on this, I think, that certainly paint a little bit of a picture about exactly where Saliba was during his time at Arsenal. I know there's been a lot of frustration from fans about why Saliba isn't playing. I kind of share that. Certainly when it comes to the Europa League, I thought he should have been given some minutes in the Europa League. That really didn't make too much sense to me. But as I've said in previous videos, from what I've heard, he hasn't been great in training, and there is a sort of general feeling that he still is some way off being at the level to play for Arsenal, certainly in the Premier League. And although that's going to a lot of people be surprised at that, given how much money Arsenal spent, given how highly rated he was, and the reports that came in from France. What we've heard, certainly myself and other reporters, is that he hasn't been absolutely brilliant in training, and Arsenal don't want to chuck him in when they think he's not ready, because he's only 19, he's barely played any football, and that could do him lasting damage. And Mikel was asked about him, and he said, look, he will come back for next pre-season, and he'll be with us, and hopefully he'll come back after playing a number of games and his performance is raising and his development progressing in the right way. That is why we made that decision. I know that sometimes it's difficult to explain or understand after the money the club spent bringing him in, send him out on loan, but a lot of things have happened to him. He's a long-term player for us, and we need to protect him as well. Giving him 3 or 4 games is not enough. I think we have found the right club for him. He is very happy to go there right now, and hopefully he can enjoy his football and be ready for us next season. So Arteta confirming there that Saliba is still very, very much part of Arsenal's future, which absolutely is what I've heard as well. There were reports that Arsenal were possibly going to entertain a permanent move for Saliba this window. I was told that was absolutely not the case, and they still very much see him as part of the future. Mikel basically saying that there as well, but also saying that he hopes that he can play a number of games in a row now, and his performances can raise to the level where Arsenal believe he is ready to play for them. Because as I said at the start of this, that hasn't really been the feeling of many people who have seen him on the training ground on a regular basis. And for me, there's a lot of conspiracy theories about it. But if he was really
absolutely good enough. There is no reason why Mikel Arteta wouldn't have been playing him. He's not going to be not playing him for a reason. He's not playing him because he doesn't feel he's ready. It's as simple as that. And I know there's a lot of frustration and like I said, conspiracy theories about it, but hopefully we'll see Saliba come back and be ready in the summer, having played an awful lot of games for Nice. He played last night. They lost 2-0 to Brest. Weren't great defensively in that, certainly in the first half, which I saw. And they haven't been great all season defensively. So Saliba's walking into a team that he's going to hopefully make an impact on and improve defensively. But last night was a bit of a tough baptism of fire for him after just about one training session with them. Mikel Arteta was asked about links with Omar Rekik, which that looks like that is going to be happening very, very soon. It's something I've touched on before in previous videos. It was a deal that was very close to happening in the summer. Didn't happen, but should be happening any time now in terms of confirmation. He's already here. He's been spotted in training pictures even. Hertha Berlin player, was a Hertha Berlin player. Like I said, Arsenal nearly got that deal done for him in the summer. Didn't quite happen. Ran out of time, but he is now over in England. He is training with them, and they should be announcing the deal for him very, very soon. He's a centre-back, 19 years old. Mikel Arteta asked about him. He said, "We will announce it when we possibly can. He is a young talent that we've been following for a while. That is a really bright future, but we will give more details when we can." Then when we sort of pressed on that, could it be today? He said, "I don't know, very soon." Well, at the moment, at the time of recording this, is 2:30, and it hasn't been announced yet. It might be announced by the time I upload this video, who knows? But certainly very, very close to Arsenal announcing the capture of Omar Rekik, who will go and play with the under-23s initially. That's not going to be one for Mikel Arteta's squad, although there's no doubt, I'm sure, that he will train with Arteta's squad throughout at times throughout the remainder of the season, as we see a numerous amount of players from the under-23s do. In terms of other transfers, I haven't got much to report, unfortunately, for you. I did a little piece this morning on the state of play, and nothing's moved on from that as far as I'm aware when it comes to incomings. Still very much the priority in getting players out, the players that they potentially have interested in, certainly in that attacking midfield role. Not really, as far as I'm aware, nothing has moved on. There is still the Isco potential on loan, although that's looking more and more unlikely. Emi Buendia, I've already spoke about, player Arsenal like, but it's going to be incredibly difficult to get that deal done in January because of the position Norwich are in, the money it will cost. I just can't. It's going to be very, very unlikely, and the same goes to like players like Houssem Aouar and stuff like that. It's just going to be a really difficult month for Arsenal to get a deal done. I'm not saying they're not going to, but as far as things stand at the moment, I don't think anything is particularly close, and the priority is still very, very much on getting players out of the door first. Socrates, Mustafi, players like that. And again, I touched on them in the video I recorded this morning, so please do have a little bit of a watch of that. If you haven't watched it already, it's down there somewhere. So let's talk about team news, focus on that match on Saturday a little bit, and the team news is pretty good. In terms of Thomas Partey and Gabriel, it's the news we wanted. Quickly start on Gabriel. Mikel Arteta was asked about him earlier, said, look, he's feeling much better. He's got no signs of illness anymore, which is fantastic. But he also said he needed to go through all the necessary checks and protocols before he was allowed to return to the group. It looks like that might well have happened, judging by Gabriel's social media, because he did tweet today, "I am back," with a big smiley face. So Gabriel very, very close to returning. I can't imagine he'll play this weekend, even if he is completely cleared to do so, just because he's been out of action for a while, hasn't trained for a couple of weeks. I think you're looking at him just sort of slotting back in, getting back up to full speed next week during training, and then potentially playing. There's a Crystal Palace and then Newcastle games coming up. So those are the ones I think you're more likely to. I think Mikel's certainly going to ring the changes for this one against Newcastle. Thomas Partey, though, now that is a player, he is a player that I expect to play against Newcastle. I wouldn't be at all surprised. He might not start, he might just get half an hour at the end, but I think Arsenal are trying to ease him back into action because he's been fully training all week, doing very, very well, and I wouldn't be surprised if Mikel uses the game on Saturday to give him a few minutes. He was trying to lower the expectation of that a little bit when he was asked about him. He said, we have 2 extra training sessions now before the game, and we'll assess after that whether is he completely fully ready to participate against Newcastle, or if we're going to leave it a few days for the Palace game. He is training really good, he is comfortable, he is not aware of the injury right now, and he has done more than what he did already before he played after the injury against Spurs. So he's in a good place, a good mood, and you can see the player he is when he is training. So fantastic news for Mikel Arteta, fantastic news for Thomas Partey, but fantastic news for Arsenal, because Thomas Partey, a fit Thomas Partey, is going to make such a huge difference to this Arsenal team, and it's so frustrating that we haven't seen enough of it yet this season because of the injury problems he's suffered since he arrived. Classic Arsenal, but hopefully now those are behind him. Mikel Arteta seems to think they are, and as long as they ease him back into the action and nothing happens, there's no setbacks, then we should see Thomas Partey as a regular in that Arsenal midfield between now and the end of the season, and that will make Arsenal a much, much better football team. Right, that's about it for today's video. Thank you very much for watching, everyone. I do appreciate it, as always. If I can, I'll pop on tomorrow for another one. If any sort of news breaks, anything like that, I will be all over it and try and keep you updated as I can. Maybe look ahead to that Newcastle game a little bit more, predicted 11, that sort of things. Thanks for watching, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your day wherever you are around the world, and I'll speak to you soon.